Welcome to Bootstrappers, a program designed to bring you up-to-the-minute ideas and concepts to understand what it takes to succeed in business and life. Each week, we'll bring you guests and ideas you can't find anywhere else. Bootstrappers is a production of Anequim, LLC. Now strap on those business boots and join Bootstrappers with Jeremy and Gwen Aspen.
Welcome to this episode, this edition of Bootstrappers. I'm your host, Jeremy Aspen. I'm the president of Wistar Group, property management in Omaha, and I'm here with my spouse, Gwen Aspen, as co-host, president of Anequim. Here at Bootstrappers, we talk to successful entrepreneurs, thinkers, community leaders about what they have learned through the trials and tribulations of leadership and starting a company, and are leading an organization and help apply it to your industry and your life. The concepts and tips that are shared on Bootstrappers apply to anyone starting a business, working at a business, or any aspiring entrepreneurs out there, and even just people looking to take control of their lives. It's self-help wrapped up in business. So let's get hungry, break some things, and strap on those business boots.
Woo! Let's do it.
Right? Let's do this thing. So today we're here with Curt Drew. He's our guest today. And Curt is, I think, what you'd call maybe a serial entrepreneur. And his focus and his expertise is franchises. So he's currently a franchisee of Fish Window Cleaning and a franchisor of National Radon Defense. So he has experience on both sides of franchising. He's known in business circles for helping entrepreneurs that might be looking at getting into franchising. He knows his stuff. Curt is also the president of the Omaha chapter. Is it Omaha or is it Nebraska chapter?
Yeah, EO Nebraska.
The Nebraska chapter for Entrepreneurs Organization, and a great resource for all things business. When he isn't talking business, he plays the guitar and hangs out with his family, married, 3 kids. Hey, thanks for joining us, Curt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Hey, great to see you guys. Yeah, good to be here.
Can I call you Curt? Or do I have to call you Mr.
Curt.
Drew?
Yeah, you can call me.
All right, that's cool. All right.
Worse.
Yeah, by me, as a matter of fact. Just kidding. So anyway, what we kind of like to do when we're starting off these interviews is just kind of ask a little bit about yourself and really the journey that you've taken to get to where you are.
Okay.
If we could talk you into that.
Yeah. So tell us about your first job and then how you got into entrepreneurship.
Well, so out of college, I was raised by a family that there's no entrepreneurs in my family at all. Like everybody's got a job, right? I was raised to go to college, get a good job. That was the strategy. And I did that, but I got into sales, medical sales out of college. I moved around a little bit, Chicago, Minneapolis, and then that brought me to Omaha and did I sold robotic technology. I sold in the operating room, surgical instruments, cool. Things like that. Yeah. So it was a great experience. But I was also in that corporate, I was a guy in the suit on the airplane Monday mornings, coming back Friday. I was, got the sales quota, got the manager conference calls Sunday night. It was I loved the jobs and what I did, but it's also like, it just seemed like there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
What was it about corporate America? Because Jeremy and I have similar stories that what for you, what was the point that it was like, this is kind of soul destroying?
Well, so is it soul destroying? It's not
Maybe it's not everybody. Not everybody.
It's not for you. For you, it sucked up and ate your soul. But for other people, it's perfect. It's great.
It is. But I know other entrepreneurs. I'm just curious. What was it for you that was like, I just can't?
It's that thought of like getting let go sometime. Like, that thought of like, man, I did all this work and I could just be fired tomorrow. Or I'm too old for this. And they bring a younger guy, pay less commissions to. And I saw that actually happen a few times, where a corporation will just turn over their sales team and go with like people 15 years younger, pay them half the price, and so you're just a number, at the end of the day, and you're not really in charge of your own destiny like you can be when you own your own business. So
you like having agency over your life, like that's a primary focus for you?
Yeah, just controlling the destiny. Yeah. I was, again, not coming from a background of entrepreneurs, my family. This is, I was 35. I quit my job, a high-paying medical job, like pretty good money, right? And
for sure,
and bought a window cleaning franchise, and everybody's like, "You are nuts! What are you doing?" Nobody thought it was a good idea.
So,
my wife.
Interesting little point, real quick. We're in Traverse City, which explains to our guests that are viewing us on podcast. Michigan. We're up by Traverse City, Michigan, and you know how when you meet when you get a new car. And then all of a sudden you're driving around your new car and hell, everybody's got the same thing, or you've never seen so many of them. Yeah. So you and I met, I'm up here, and you had mentioned that there's a fish window cleaning up here. Sure enough, yesterday, driving up from Traverse City, and there's fish window cleaning. So you're all over, even in these small towns up here. Sorry, Gwen, I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
No, that's awesome. I love that. Well, my question, though, for you, Curt, is, how old were you and what stage of your life were you 35. In? Were you, you said 35. Did you already say that?
Yeah, I was 35. And, but I was
Did you have
married.
Kids? Oh.
Yeah, we had 2 at the time. It's funny because little kids then. And I was driving to franchise training. When you buy a franchise, you go to the corporate headquarters, you get trained for a couple weeks. And that's when I found out Michelle was pregnant with our 3rd child. So, that's a really good idea. Let's quit our job, start a new business, and then let's have a child while we're doing this. So,
no pressure there.
Nope. No
I'm
pressure.
kind of always, I'm kind of always amazed because that happens quite a bit with these, especially the guests that we've had on the show. Babies pop up at the most inopportune times, and it's just part of the fear factor of going in, and it seems like it's like, I don't know if it's the DNA of starting a business, but it happens so often that starting a new business and what is it about starting a business that gets everybody horny enough to
I don't know.
I don't know what that is. Another thing,
or something.
Maybe that's it. There's a scientific connection. Anyway, sorry.
But so your wife was on board. I mean, how did
she was? Yeah, she's the rock. She's really supportive, and certainly could not do any of this without her. And she believed in it. What we're going to do, and she's like, Curt, you've been done well in your career. Why not just do your own thing? I'm sure you'll be fine at that, and you'll do well. And but of course everybody else like, you're crazy. Why are you doing? Quit your job? Even my parents, everybody was like, that's nuts. But no, it all worked out. We followed with a franchise. I had no experience running a business before. I just had a lot of sales experience. And the nice thing with the franchise, it's basically a roadmap. It's a business in a box, and you follow the systems that are there for you, and you can have success. It ended up working out pretty well.
I just want to go back. Sorry, I just want to go back to one thing that you said. Like, even your parents were kind of nervous about you making that transition. Yeah. And I feel like that's so common for any of you all starting a new business right now. I feel like your family, families in general, love their people, but they often want what's safest for the people they love, not necessarily what's best. Yes. And so we love our families and we love the people surrounding us, but sometimes you really have to be strong enough to just be like, I know you want the safest thing for me, but it's not the best for me, even though it seems like a good idea to you.
Well, and it's
a hard thing to do, though.
There's a great question that when I listened to Sam Harris, he asks a version of this question. So, Curt, it might be hard. Who's
Sam Harris?
Sam Harris is a podcaster, and he's one of the 4. Sam Harris, not the singer when you do a search. But he asked this question to all of his guests, and it's an intellectual podcast, but in your life, is there any one thing you would never wish on a loved one, but that you wouldn't take back because it helped shape who you are? I love that question. Because there's things.
I think I got an answer. How about going 2 years without an income when you've got 3 little kids?
Oh, yeah.
So all that savings I had, the secure strategy I was going for with corporate America, all that gone. Bye-bye savings, stocks, everything I, had, hello debt, hello credit card debt, hello, getting through that ramp up of starting a new business was brutal, and just had to keep looking down. Okay, 6 months from now, it's going to be better. And then after that, it'll be another 6 months. We'll be making money. And then, just kind of plowing ahead but financially going through probably a train wreck I wouldn't wish on too many people.
Because that's because it's not just that your money's going down, all the stressors that come with it. And then you think about the things that start happening to your children. They start.
Yeah. What if they got sick?
Yeah.
What if you get in a car accident? Like, what if the heating and air conditioning breaks? It's so stressful. Jeremy and I went through that. I worked as a pharma rep to shore us up during the first 18 months that he didn't make any money. But then there wasn't a lot of money coming in, and then I quit my job. And it was pretty scary.
Yeah. But I will say though, I was under way more stress at my sales job in corporate America than I was running my own company, because I feel like, I still have the same stresses of I want to do well. And, you want to have good financial success and, take care of your family, those types of things. But what I gave up was that external stress of having a manager, calling me out on, hey, how'd that sales appointment go? And hey, where's your reports? And, we were a publicly traded company, so we had quarterlies that we needed to return.
Yes.
According to their share,
This is Jeremy Aspen. I'm with Gwen Aspen. We're hosting Bootstrappers, and our guest today is Curt Drew. He is an expert in franchisees, which is kind of what I want to go into now, because as you'd alluded to, I think all of our guests to date have not gone the franchise route. And that's what I thought was so interesting about bringing you on board, because it is something, it's an option for a lot of people. I do a little research on it, and it looks like you don't even necessarily have to experience. I'm gonna dovetail into the kind of what you had mentioned earlier. That's because they train for it, I'm guessing. But why did you pick the franchise route as opposed to another route? And what can you tell us about it, being that you're on both sides? You started off with Fish, which made you a franchisee,
right?
And later, apparently you loved the idea enough that you went on and started your own to become a franchisor. So what's that look like?
Yeah, so to start with the franchisee, why go that route is just, the percentages of success with a franchise versus like starting a business from scratch or your own idea and your own, like, kind of figure it out. It's well documented. The success rate of franchisees is way higher than just startups. It's like, it's significantly different. So I like that. And I, the other thing that's nice about being a franchisee or looking at franchises, you can call around to these other franchisees around the country. They're all listed. You can get a listing of all their franchisees for these different franchise concepts, and just ask the franchisee, how's it going? Are you making money? Is the franchisor supportive? Are their systems good? All that kind of thing. And these franchisees don't have a vested interest in selling you anything. They're just running their own company. So that's what I did when I was looking at franchises to buy. I called around, looked at a lot of different concepts, and I just called these window cleaning franchisees, because actually it was one of those franchises I saw and I skipped and I moved on to sexier ones. And then I came back to it one day because I actually saw one of the trucks going down the road in Minneapolis. And so I called the franchisee, and he's just like, that's a great business. And I just kept calling around and checking with franchisees, and everybody's like, yeah, great business.
All right, we're back. This is Bootstrappers, and I'm Jeremy. This is Gwen here, my co-host and wife. We both share the last name Aspen, and we run a little family and a radio show about business.
And we're here with Curt Drew, who is the franchisee of Fish Window Cleaning and the franchisor of Radon Defense National Radon Defense. Am I getting it right?
You got it.
Oh,
Got
good.
it.
Okay, good.
The best one.
So we're just picking up with Curt about when he was choosing his very first franchise as a franchisee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so curious what you saw when you were looking at all the options, and what were some of the red flags for you, what looked good for you, just helping other people understand what that process is like.
So I got connected to a franchise broker, and I don't know if you know about these, but there's franchise brokers. Yeah. So there are companies out there that represent the brands, that represent a bunch of franchises.
Okay.
And so I was a lead into their system, because I remember I was actually in a hotel room in St. Paul, and I was searching for businesses for sale in Omaha, Nebraska, because I was like motivated. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wow, we did too.
Got me thinking, like, I want to own my business. And so I went into a website and I entered my information. I became a lead for some franchise broker, which actually was great, because they were able to do a like an application with me, like, how much money do you have? What kind of business are you looking to do? All the aspects of, kind of priming me to fit with what franchises, so because of how much money I had, well, that would eliminate a lot of these franchises. And, anyway, long story short, I looked at a lot of different franchises through them, and then what they do is they connect you with a rep from each of the franchisees, or from the franchisors, and you can research and kind of do some digging and kind of just go franchise to franchise and see which one fits.
So I have a question about.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about that process. So culture, of course, is a huge deal on whether you're going to succeed or fail with a franchise. So were there questions more nuts and bolts, or were they asking any personality questions, culture questions? Were they asking those as well?
Yeah, they're like, would you have a problem owning a company that has that is outhouses? Would you be proud of porta potty business? Would you, or like, would you be ethically challenged to have a check cashing business? Things like that. And so that kind of narrowed it down for us. And then, like, would you want a restaurant? Do you want retail? Would you want more of a service business? And I was really liked the service industry. Like, I feel like there's opportunities in the service industry. Just in the residential trades, commercial trades businesses, how it is. There's just a lot of mom and pops and that struggle with just answering the phone, and showing up on time.
Sure.
And
That's right. Yeah.
We go on and on, right? We all have stories of contractors. I'm waiting for somebody to do my steps right now, and the guy won't show up, So
yes,
there's opportunities out there in residential trades. And I discovered that. And then, window cleaning happened to be that avenue, and then eventually radon. So, yeah.
So knowing what you know now, having been franchisor, what is it like? What are the what would you suggest to somebody, just real quick, to avoid? How do you know you're working with the right franchise or not? There must be some things out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all about that due diligence of calling all the franchisees you can.
Okay.
And just get them on the phone. And, the franchisor is going to have a salesperson that's going to be giving you names of franchisees to call. Well, that's their list. Okay. They're not going to give you bad ones. But part of the process with franchises, they have what they call an FDD. It's a franchise disclosure document. It's a packet this thick, and that's what you get when you're looking at franchises. And in that is a listing of every franchise. So what I did is I went to the back of that, looked at all of them, just started calling different ones that they didn't give me. And that was really helpful. And of course, you find some that weren't real happy with the business, but then you find, you kind of, have to take it all with a grain of salt, do your own research.
When you were looking at franchises other than fish, so because you said you kind of passed over it and then looked at other ones and then came back to it, what were some of the things that people said that made you pass over other franchises?
Just trying to get to them to talk about financials was really important, because are they making any money at this,
Right. Yeah.
So the thing you got, if psychology at play here, right? If somebody just invested a bunch of money in a business and put down cash for a franchise and is committed to it, they're going to want to back up that decision that they made.
Oh, that's such a good point. Oh my gosh.
So they're
absolutely.
just trying to
let themselves know they made the right choice because
totally.
They're not stupid.
So you got to dig deeper than that. And I would recommend asking some tough questions about finances, try to get them to, hey, I'm trying to put together a P&L on this, a projection. Like, when did you first start making real money at this? And how long did it take? And And so you can kind of find out that way.
So you found when you first started calling around that people would just avoid the topic, or what really happened when you called them and they weren't doing well?
Yeah. It sometimes it's hard to tell, right? How many employees do you have? How much have you grown? Those types of questions to drill in, kind of to see behind the curtains a little bit. But I remember some people just being really frank. Like, hey, if you had to do it again, would you choose this franchise? And them saying, I don't know,
Yeah.
Now, what about this? So you might be able to hook up with a great company, right? But it isn't necessarily true, and this is conjecture, but that whatever markets are available, that there will be enough business to sustain. So is that part of the process? Do they have kind of these are the markets we think are going to do well, and here's the evidence to support it? Or is it kind of like you say, hey, I'm from Omaha and I'd like to take it to Omaha?
Yeah, it's definitely typically where you're at. And I want to start a business here. And not to say you couldn't buy a franchise and go somewhere else and do it, but most of these franchises want the owner really, really involved. Unless you're like a McDonald's or something like that, right? But they want to know. They like owner operators. A lot of these that the owner is there every day and running the ship. So, yeah. But then they typically have a territory. It's a exclusive territory. It's by zip code or by number of households, depending on the industry. And then you're looking at it's a small territory, large territory, executive type territory. So there's different franchise fees associated with size of territory.
Okay.
How they do it. Yeah.
I'm Jeremy Aspen. I'm with my lovely spouse, Gwen Aspen. We're hosting Bootstrappers, and this is a show that brings Omaha and on 1290 Coil, brings business leaders and thought leaders generally speaking, to your ears. And we're also in podcast and vlogcast, whatever that's called. And we're with Curt Drew. He is a franchisee of Fish Window Cleaning and a franchisor of National Radon
Defense.
So you're getting all these ideas while you're out there looking for these new businesses, right? What would stop window cleaning? Why didn't you just buy the supplies yourself? Maybe a truck, squeegees, rags, whatever the equipment is. I'm sure it's more than that. And kind of do it yourself. Like, the idea could have been born during your search for a franchise, but you must have thought, well, I could do this on my own.
Well, yeah, that's what a lot of people will tell you too, that are kind of on the outsides looking in and saying, well, why wouldn't window cleaners? That's not very complicated. And, really, I think, most businesses on the production side, the actual doing the work, that's the easy part, like painting a house or washing a window, that kind of thing. The challenging part and the part that really separates successful businesses and non-successful is the marketing.
Oh my gosh. And marketing is so complicated now.
Oh
my gosh. I mean, I just got a new marketing guy, and the data analytics that you are using to make sure your marketing dollars go the farthest. And it is one heck of an operation. And if you didn't go to college or can't afford some very sophisticated in the trenches marketing person, it could be scary being in an industry like window cleaning all by yourself, because how do you compete if you don't understand that digital marketing world?
Right. Yeah, so that's a big key that we saw with it, is having the marketing systems, the plan that works. Take away the guesswork. Oh, give me a plan to follow. Great. Okay, I can do that. And then on the other side of the coin is just the systems for running an effective business. So here's how we're going to pay people. Here's how we're going to schedule the work. All those processes of production to sales, marketing to sales. In a franchise, they have it all figured out and ironed out for you. So you can just hit the ground and run and grow and scale it. Versus, I probably could have built a pretty nice window cleaning business, but it would have been probably taken me longer to get there, and having to figure out all the systems myself. And like I mentioned, I'd never ran a business before either, so I didn't really have that skill set either. But developed it, learned about business systems, and how do you scale a company is really by having your operations systemized.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's
go ahead, Jeremy.
If you so here I'm thinking about this. I'm like, okay, do I want to do a franchise? And it's probably an understatement, but some people, entrepreneurs, it seems like they would want more freedoms, right? But is that true? I mean, do you actually have all the freedoms of a business owner, or are there some constricting factors that maybe don't let you fly your entrepreneur flag all the time?
I think, franchises are good for some entrepreneurs and not good for other types of entrepreneurs. So there's some, those visionary entrepreneurs that have an idea and want to craft their own thing. They're challenged with a franchise because, with a franchise, it's already been created. Now, we don't want you to create anything. Okay. Certainly give us feedback. Let us know what's working. But if the value in a franchise is buying a proven business model, and if you're one of these entrepreneurs that's going to come in and break it all and say, no, my ideas are better, you're wasting your money. So those integrator type entrepreneurs, the people that just get things done, that love systems, that love to follow through and push and are great leaders, man, those are great fits.
So integrator, for our guests that are listening, integrator it's one of the archetypes, I think. No, that's traction, right? Mm-hmm. So that's so you're a traction. I think I can deduce from that you follow. Language. You speak traction, right? So an integrator is a person, like you said, that they're kind of between the visionary and the operation, and they kind of make it happen for the visionary, right? Yeah. So that you're saying that's maybe the right kind of person for franchises. And so when you're just making a decision, and before we change the subject totally, it's prime it with. So you've been in fish for a while, but now from the vantage point of the franchise, what are you looking for? I mean, I guess what we could say is an integrator kind of personality. Yeah. So are you doing a CI, a cultural index, which we could explain? We don't
do a CI, and we just, with the Radon side of our business, so I have a franchise, a business model for indoor air quality services. Radon's our lead source. And, we're looking for somebody that values a proven business model. Like, hey, I don't have to go figure this out myself. Great. Oh, you can shortcut that for me? Awesome. Oh, you have all the marketing things figured out. You've got the sales software. You've got vendors for me and all the production side done. If they value that, then they're typically somebody that's going to be a better fit than somebody that's like questioning that and saying, I can think of it. I can figure this out better than you can, or, wants to recreate everything, so that type of person would not be somebody that would be a good fit as a franchisee.
So up next, let's have a discussion about conflict, about the conflict maybe that may or may not exist. Maybe it's a very short conversation about between the franchisee and the franchisor, and maybe some of the things that you've seen. All right, welcome back to Bootstrappers. My name is Jeremy Aspen. I'm with my spouse, Gwen Aspen. Hey, hon. And this is Bootstrappers, a show designed to bring entrepreneurs and thought leaders to the listeners on 1290 Coil here in Omaha, Nebraska, and around the country via podcast and vlogcast or videocast, whatever. I got to figure that one out.
Yes.
Anyway, and
we're here today with our lovely guest, Curt Drew, who is a franchisee of Fish Window Washing. I think I messed that up. and National Radon Defense as a franchisor. And we're just talking about the nuts and bolts of franchise arrangements and how someone would choose one and all that kind of jazz. So that brings me to my question right now. A lot of people are worried about the downside of any big investment, like investing in a franchise. And there are some horror stories on the internet about franchise arrangements gone wrong. One of which I saw was Burger King was forcing their franchisees to sell hamburgers as a loss leader, or cheeseburgers specifically, at $1, and really tightening the financial strings of the franchisees. And they were really upset and ended up suing Burger King. There's another one with edible arrangements where they forced them to be open on Sundays, and they were making like no money, like $23 on a Sunday, whereas they were making thousands of dollars during the week. So what kind of horror stories and how do have you heard of or would make you avoid a franchise arrangement? And what is the way that people resolve conflicts in such an arrangement?
Yeah, it's really trying to get to the ethics of the franchisor, isn't it? Like the people that are running the show, are we a mesh with their core values? You know, what are they trying to do with growing their network? Are they trying to sell it to venture capital at some point? You know, are they?
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, a lot of these are, you know, eventually they're just trying to get to a certain mass that they look appealing to venture capital, and then, you know, can move on. So looking at that track record is really key. You know, you guys remember Quiznos, Subs?
Sure.
Yes.
Where are they? Why are they?
Where are they?
I don't know. Where are they? I haven't seen
They had new ownership come in, and they changed the way they were dealing with franchisees, and they were putting, if you had a Quiznos, they would put one right down the street from you, and then put one across the street. You know, they sold too many, and then so none of them really were able to prosper. At least that's what happened in the Omaha market. You know, that might have changed since then, but that
are they around
here? They're still a franchise, and I think they've shrunk in numbers quite a bit. But at one point, they were huge.
Yeah, I kind of remember them from.
And
back
they
in
were
the day.
sold to a venture capitalist outfit.
I don't know if it was venture capital or just sold to another outfit.
Okay,
yeah, new ownership, new management.
On that core, I've been really focused on culture lately. It's been something I've been really thinking about. And, you know, any company can slap 6 words on their website and say, this is our culture, these are our values. So as you were evaluating companies, how did you really dig down into the true culture? And I just want to give an example because I found this fascinating. I'm reading a new book, and it was using Uber as an example of a company that had a cultural crisis. And it was saying that Uber, they had just this thing in their corporate culture where you'd be in a boardroom with people and they would be texting about you behind your back while you're speaking. And when the consultants came in and they were identifying cultural issues there, that was like the first thing that they said, cannot stand. Nobody in this meeting can say nasty things via text message while someone else is talking in a board meeting. And it just led me to think, how do you really identify culture until you're really in it? So how did you do that with your franchise search?
Yeah, you know, they have this thing called a discovery day in the franchise world. That's when you go to the franchise location, you break bread with them, the dog and pony show. They're trying to close you, you know, and sell a franchise. And I remember ours, my wife and I went to St. Louis. That's where Fish Window Cleaning is based. And, you know, got a chance to sit down with the owner and his wife who they're still involved today. They're in their upper 70s, but they're still involved today. Just genuine, good people. Like really, you know, we just kind of felt comfortable with them and their managers too. So that's what kind of did it for us. You know, just I guess, meeting in person and getting to know them on a personal basis.
So you kind of got into the franchise before you made that move and really dug down, met the people who started it, and got like that personal vibe from them before you signed on the dotted line and committed.
Yes.
Well, it probably goes both ways, right? Because so you're the franchisor and you're trying to sell a potential franchisee, but as a franchisor, correct me if I'm wrong, but it stands to reason, seemingly, that you're as interested in making sure that you've got somebody that matches your ethics, your values, because if you don't, you're still going to have those conflicts. And maybe you're the one as the franchisor to pick up on, whoa, this isn't the right move. Has that happened to you?
Absolutely.
We actually have we have some, check these boxes type of thing when we're interviewing franchisors at National Radon Defense to join our dealership network. And one of them is these immutable laws. All right, you can't if they're this, they're not in, and no a-holes allowed. I mean, if we don't like them, if we don't get along with them, if we feel there's a tension there, like we're going to be working with this person and their company for a long time, and if they're just kind of not cool, like you're sensing this guy's kind of a jerk, we're just going to turn and move on because life's too short. And
Curt, what are some of the other immutable laws? I love this idea.
Well, there's we have a whole chart of them, but there's really those main ones is there's 3, right? So there's no a-holes, and then
you have that written down? No a-holes?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it says no a-holes.
Well, for our listeners that don't know what an a-hole is, so no a-holes.
Everybody's got one, but you know what I mean.
Can't be one.
It can't be one. There it is. Yes.
All right. What are the other ones?
They follow the system. Like they actually want to follow a system. It's really key. And the third thing is communication. So, the people that never return an email, or you call them and their voicemail's full and they never call you back, and they're, that's really hard to support somebody like that, So they join your network, you give them all this training and you're excited, they're excited, and you can't get a hold of them, and it's just you're playing this. You find that out pretty quick, though, when you first start dealing with somebody, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. This is Bootstrappers, a radio show designed to bring entrepreneurs and leaders, thought leaders, business leaders, any leaders to your ears for fun discussion so we can all learn a little bit more about what it is that makes businesses successful. And that's fun about this gig that Gwen and I are doing, because we can't purport to be the most successful people in the world, but we get to talk to them. Today we're talking with Curt Drew. He is the owner of, he's a franchisor for National Radon Defense and a franchisee of Fish Window Cleaning.
So I have sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just digging right into it because I'm just so interested in what Curt has to say. But so one of the things that I think is interesting or important for listeners to understand is how you would know if a franchise has an actual operational advantage if you're not in that specific industry. So I know it just kind of makes me think of like those makeup salespeople. And a lot of the time there are horror stories about those kinds of companies because no one really wants makeup. Like you can go to Walgreens and buy makeup for like $8 and it works. So there's no reason that you spend $50 on eyeshadow. And so these people buy in all these products and then they can't sell them, and it ends up being a horror story. So I know that's not a franchise, but it leads to that operational advantage question. So how do you make sure that this franchise is actually the best one?
Yeah, I think that's the question, right? It's like, what are those operational advantages that I'm going to gain by being part of this network versus just doing it myself? Like, what can they do for me that I can't do on my own? And, some of that is just like software. Like maybe the franchisor has built a platform that I couldn't possibly do on my own. It'd just be way too expensive. But because we've got 50 of these companies or 100 of these companies, we can pool our money together and build this great software that would run my company.
So like a CRM, like a
CRM that's custom built. Like we have one at the window cleaning business, and then we have one actually at the radon business too, where you've got, one operation that's knows how to, typically it's the franchisor, is going to have a prototype business, right? With all the systems that they're taking and then just duplicating in other markets, right? So you're leveraging all of those systems that have already been ironed out, and then usually that's tied to a CRM. It's tied to a phone system. A lot of these networks will have a centralized call center. So there's franchises out there where you don't need an office. You can just do this from anywhere because your office is located in Cincinnati, Ohio at the corporate office. That's where all the phones ring to, and they're centralized, trained to answer the phones the right way and convert leads to appointments, and then you don't even have to manage those people.
And then they put it into your CRM so that you just go in there and
just go show up for the appointment. Yeah. Or whatever it is you're doing. Yeah. So there's those types of systems, or, leveraging that centralized, production systems that you kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
Huge deals. That's what you're looking for. Like, I'm going to be paying these guys a royalty forever, right? I'm going to sign this contract. I'm going to get into this business, and they're going to take a percentage of revenue. And at the end of the day, is that worth, what is the value there?
Yes. Yeah. So like, let's say you have a complaint from somebody that you worked with, or a customer, and they're saying the centralized phone lady wasn't very nice. Is there a way to air grievances at a franchise? Is it like once a quarter they have like a grievance meeting, like a Festivus meeting, or how does that usually work?
Right. I think it just depends on the maturity of the franchise, so when they get to a certain level, they've got a lot of support, layers, and then you'll have your franchise representatives. So they'll break these franchises up in regions, and maybe a franchisee would then be on the franchise council that then reports to the franchisor, and they meet. And so we call it a franchise advisory board kind of position. So there's different channels to communicate to the franchisor. If they're smaller and just nimble, just go right to them and say, hey, listen, here's what happened.
Okay.
Can you help me? So
do you ever find that, because you're starting with people that are just trying to get into owning their own business. And this is maybe more of a mom and pop question, because you talk about the value proposition of software and infrastructure. Like you can have a $500,000 infrastructure as a franchisor, and you share it. So then every mom and pop shop or every franchisee has a $500,000 infrastructure, which will help promote their business or whatever it's designed to do. But how complicated is it when you're dealing with people that haven't had a business? There must be some sort of naivete at the front end. Like maybe expectations don't quite meet it. Do you work that out after they start? That must be hard because you can't really tell the future. Or what do you do to get rid of that at the front end?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, they're kind of thinking probably like, what are the values? I don't know enough to know what the value is. But then again, I would imagine there's when you're lying in bed at night and they're worrying about, what if the phone doesn't ring, and what if I can't hire people, and what all those things you worry about with running a business. You'd hope to be able as a franchisor to help them with those and say, well, that's come up before, and it comes up all the time, and here's how we address that. And yes, we've thought of that before. Of course we have, because everybody's got that issue, and this is how we resolved it, and this is our system for hiring. This is our process. This is our system for sales. To differentiate from the competition. Yeah,
you've seen it. You can probably apply some of that wisdom to the future. Gwen, we're going to come right back in just a little bit. Up next, what I would like to talk about after Gwen asks her question is what it looks like to sell a franchise. It must be a little bit different. There is at least one extra hurdle, which would be permission, I'm guessing. Anyway, so that we're going to talk about in just a minute. Welcome back to Bootstrappers. My name's Jeremy Aspen. I'm here with my lovely and brilliant spouse, Gwen. This is Bootstrappers, a show designed to help bring the smartest, the best ideas from business into your car or in through your radio or through the internet or however you're paying attention
or
to
your
us.
blog.
Or your vlog. This is Bootstrappers.
And we're lucky enough today to be speaking with Curt Drew, who is a franchisee of Fish Window Cleaning and a franchisor with National Radon Defense. I still think I'm screwing it up. National Radon Defense. I got it.
Yes.
Yep. Yay. Okay. So Curt, I was just thinking, there are a lot of our audience is primarily property management company owners.
Right.
And a lot of them are looking at growing their business in another way. So they might be doing some sales of houses and have the property management thing kind of working really well. And they want to grow into a complementary but different business. Do you recommend, or do you see a lot of people have multiple businesses and then go in, or a business or two and then go into franchising? Or
actually, that's what most of our members in our network are doing. They've got a successful business. They understand branding and understand systems, and they're looking to diversify and add other business units under their umbrella. So, hey, these niche businesses are kind of neat, right? They got good margins. I can maybe leverage that I've got an office already with people answering the phones. I can leverage that I've got some employees, and maybe I've got the sales guy that can help me get this started, and so you've got something there in place already. I've got an existing business. I know how to run a business. I've never done this business before. So maybe I could partner up with a network like a National Radon Defense, or you pick the industry that's already got that figured out, and then I can just leverage what they've already figured out and go plug it in here in Columbus, Ohio, or
So are a lot of franchises like that, where they're just trying to offer a piece to a larger puzzle?
It's interesting because, most franchisors would rather you just had one. Mm-hmm. Okay, right? Okay. Just focus on mine, man. Right, I don't want you going off and chasing squirrels. Interesting. Right? But, hey, us as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're not satisfied with that. We feel like, hey, we've got this thing humming. I got a general manager in place over here. I got that business going. Now my entrepreneurial bug is getting itched. That's not itching a bug, but whatever that is. So you're looking like, I want to build this empire and I want another brand. Let's go with this brand. Let's go with that brand. I learned about this radon thing. That seems like that's a big thing. It's a growing concern. People are learning more and more about it. Maybe I want to get into that industry, or there's so many different industries to look at. And in every industry, there's franchises, there's dealerships, there's different things you can look at to help you just shorten that curve or maybe take out some of the risk of starting from scratch.
Where I can see this really fitting in is kind of in two places. Like one, let's say I've never owned a business. I'm not from a business family in any way, and I'm terrified, but I know that I want to try something entrepreneurial. I feel like a franchise could be joining into a network, getting a business coach, and kind of setting yourself up for success. Another place where I see maybe a franchise helping an existing entrepreneur is if somebody is burned out or has PTSD from starting their first business, and their spouse is like, oh, hell no, we are not going to do that again. But they're kind of bored and they want that next entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah.
Could be a little bit safer. It could appease the other people in your life who maybe are a little bit more risk adverse. And it could be kind of like a second business after you started the first business, the old cowboy way, on your own, doing it your own way. So are those kind of two or life stages that you're seeing at your franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have the progressives, if you will, that are just going for it, add another concept, let's do this, let's do that. And then you have the folks that are like, I want a different angle. I don't want to go back working for the man. I've done that. I want my own thing, and I want my own destiny, and I want to build some wealth here, build my own business. And they're searching for what fits for them, what fits for their skill set, what fits for like the kind of money they want to make. You have a lot of franchisees just in general that a lot of times are people that were in corporate America that got downsized. Maybe they got a severance package. I got a severance, and I'm not going back to that, and
right now, we know some people who have been laid off from, pretty sweet corporate gigs lately. And, let's say you're 55, you still have a bunch of years left.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to get out into that corporate world and get a good job. But they have some money to put into a franchise. Are you getting a lot of people like that interested in?
Not necessarily for my business, for National Radon Defense, because we do target people that are already in residential trades.
Okay.
So we do have standalone radon companies. We have companies that are already in residential trades looking to add, so for instance, several of our dealers, we call them, are a mold company to do mold remediation. And they're like, oh, hey, we're an indoor air quality company. Let's add radon, Or I'm already doing basement waterproofing, foundation repair work. Let's add radon on. I'm already in basements,
Got it. Oh, that is interesting.
So that's where our kind of niche is. But in general speaking, for the several other franchises out there, those franchisors a lot of times are going with people that have never ran a business before, but have some money and want to do their own thing now.
So cool. Very interesting. And as a matter of fact, so interesting that we are going to, Curt, if you're okay with it, we're going to take you to the next side of a break. Right now on 1290 Coil, we have run out of time, but it's nice that we have a podcast. We can ask some different questions. And I'd like to ask Curt about the difference between licensing, dealerships, franchises, and get to a question I led with a little bit, or I mentioned it a little earlier, and that is what it looks like to sell. So if you're listening on 1290 Coil, you can go to bootstrappers.club and pick up a link to either the video version of this show or the podcast. Welcome back to Bootstrappers Bonus Edition. We've just gotten off the air with 1290 Coil, but we had a lot to talk about with Curt, who is with Fish Window Cleaning and with National Radon Defense, right? And so anyway, we'll go right back into it, Curt. I know that your time is precious, but so I've always had I've always been kind of confused between the difference between licensing or dealerships or a franchise, or some of those the same thing. But what is it, and what are those different options out there?
True franchising is really, there's a brand, that you're getting. It's a very comprehensive business, right? Where you're tied to specific brand standards. You can't deviate from those standards. It's pretty strict, right? And that you're typically signing a franchise disclosure document. You're paying a franchise fee, and then it's a royalty-based business model. So that's like a typical franchise you'd see: the McDonald's, the Subways, the Serve Pros, the Fish Window Cleanings of the world. And then there's different networks out there. You might notice these now that you're thinking about this, but there's dealerships out there. I just was visiting to our local Leaf Guard dealer today, a friend of mine who owns the Leaf Guard dealership in Omaha, and he doesn't pay a franchise fee. He didn't sign a franchise document. He just became the dealer of that line of product that goes in gutters to make sure there's no leaves get in there and they get clogged. And so he's basically a dealer, and the way that the franchisor makes money, or the dealer home office, is off this buying and selling of their exclusive product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The dealerships are cool. And then there's, licensing. You can get a license agreement for exclusive territories. That's what we do at National Radon Defense. Actually, it's a dealership / license agreement. So we protect the territory and then provide all the same systems as a franchise, by the way, but just not as stringent on the branding, not as stringent on some of the systems.
Well, and aren't a lot of states have their own franchising laws, don't they? Which adds an extra at least one layer of complication. Why is that? Why are there all these different franchising laws? That's a good question.
Well, obviously, there's these people called lawyers, and when somebody gets wronged by misleading company that says this is guaranteed to work, and you know what, we got a business system, it's bulletproof, and maybe they some consumers, or the consumer being the franchisee, got burned. That's happened over years and years, right? And so they've developed these franchise laws out there that make it so you've got to disclose things to people, and make sure you're disclosing all the upfront costs, and not just selling this blue sky.
So can I guess, is California pretty much known as the worst place in the world to do a franchise?
Yeah, I would put California, Florida, and Illinois in a group together.
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting because Illinois has got really stringent franchise laws. Florida's crazy, strict laws down there too. And then California, it's its own beast. California actually has, it's difficult for a franchisor in California because it's easier for franchisees to get out of the agreements there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the laws are really favoring the franchisees in California, and giving them more avenues to get out of these agreements.
Okay.
So I have a question about the training. So let's say I own a what do you call it? Residential trades company? Yeah,
residential trades company, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I kind of know, because I have a radon system in my house, but I don't really know anything about radon. Yeah. Do I go to a class? Do I come to Omaha? How does it work? How do you learn how to do the work?
Totally, yeah. So, with our program, we train in all aspects of running the company. So we bring our new dealers into Omaha. We train them in how to install radon systems the right way, and our other indoor quality products we have. We train in our sales process and our sales software that they get access to, being part of our network. So that's huge in differentiating yourself from the other radon companies out there from day one, right? And then, we train in all those marketing systems, get their website up and running, get their lead sources going. So if you look at the main aspects of the business, right, the marketing, sales, production, all those aspects where we really spend a lot of time. And then, of course, the back office things as well.
So how long does that whole process take to get up and running and start, the phone ringing and getting into the operation? Yeah,
it can be pretty quick with some companies, but I usually say, from when they sign a license agreement to when they're actually getting business coming in is about a 90-day process. Mm-hmm. In that there's some training they're doing up front. They're coming to Omaha, and then we're getting our marketing going, and then launching the business.
Well, what better way to segue to the end? You just talked about the beginning of the relationship, and during the interview on the radio, you had mentioned building wealth. It's just a way for the franchisee to build wealth. So what does it look like to sell a franchise?
From a franchisor standpoint?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of, one of our core values here is transparency. So it's a lot of sharing the pros, the cons, the ups and downs of this business, and making sure people really understand and that they're a good fit. Because at the end of the day, we want people to be successful in this. So that's a lot of the sales process. Obviously, we would get a lead and we would interview them and see if they're qualified, and then we actually send out a packet of information, and that's followed up with a webinar, a Zoom meeting like this, to dive into the details of the business. And through that, we're learning, if they're a fit, they're learning if we're a fit for them. And then another key part is having them go out and talk to our dealers, our franchisees, and for another word, and just ask whatever they want. I mean, I don't care. Ask everything. I want to make sure you're comfortable with this.
So what about the franchisee if they want to get out or sell it? What does that look like?
For them to actually, selling the business,
so they built their wealth.
They're ready to move on, right? And they're like, hey, I've got this business. And so there's obviously a few avenues in that for selling your business. You could certainly look to employees to take it over and try to keep some ownership maybe in it, and raise people up. There's multi-generational businesses, like we all know those, right? Where the son takes it over and buys it. And then there's just the exits, right? Where you're just like, I'm going to list this with a business broker, and I'm going to, or some other listing agency, and just sell the business and off into the sunset.
So you don't have to sell it back to the franchise?
No. Most it's interesting because some franchisors are in the business of buying back and building their corporate stores, right? Like the franchisee selling back to corporate, and they'll just put a manager in place. But a lot of franchisors don't want to do that. They don't want to run these businesses. They want to do their role of supporting them, and would rather just have those territories resold to other people. Yeah.
All right. Well, Curt, we know you're a busy person as a franchisee and a franchisor. We really appreciate you coming on the radio show and the podcast. Really fun. Learned a whole bunch, and I'm sure that our listeners and viewers did too. So this is it for this week's edition of Bootstrappers. I'm Jeremy Aspen, that's Gwen Aspen, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
This has been Bootstrappers, a unique presentation designed to help you better understand what makes the world turn. Contact Gwen or Jeremy Aspen at hosts@bootstrapper.club. Join us next time on News Talk 1290 KOIL, at our website, or download the podcast.